This is Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. I regret to report that both our Jedi Order and the Republic have fallen. Our future is uncertain. But in time, a new hope will emerge.
Coffee with Kenobi presents Rebels Reactions with Dan Z and Corey Club.
All troopers, focus your fire on the Jedi.
Come with us. Learn what it truly means to be a Jedi.
I'm in space. And I'm about to die.
We need an opening. Found one.
What did he say?
He said hello, hyperspace. Oh, and guess what? This is the podcast you're looking for.
The first season of Rebels has ended, and Star Wars fans everywhere can't stop talking about the amazing finale, as well as this new entry in the Star Wars canon. We saw character development, incredible surprises, and the return of many Star Wars legends. Joining us to discuss the epic first season of Rebels is returning guest Freddie Prinze Jr. We had an awesome discussion, of course, when Freddie was with us at the beginning of the season, and have been counting down the days to have him join us again for a cup of coffee. Welcome again, my friend.
It's late at night. We might need a cup of coffee.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about it. Let's put a pot on.
A nice Rhodian brew.
There you go. Very good. Very timely. So, Freddie, the last time we spoke with you, Rise of the Old Masters had just aired. So much has happened to the crew of the Ghost since that episode. So we want to look at the evolution of Kanan throughout Season 1 up to the finale, where we'll start with the two-parter Empire Day and Gathering Forces. Ezra learns about his past, and Kanan learns more about what it means to be a mentor. Talk about those two episodes and kind of Kanan's arc through that.
Well, I mean, we can sort of discuss Kanan's evolution over the whole series if you want, but in those two episodes specifically, it's more about him learning how to be a teacher, him learning how to be a mentor, him learning how to be a father or an older brother, almost more than it is him learning how to be a Jedi. And you can make an argument that the two go hand in hand, but in a sort of let's break down every single part of his personality, those episodes focus much more on him releasing fear of not being a strong teacher and not being worthy and failing not only this child but his entire crew. That it's that sort of release that I guess you could say is maybe, I don't know if you'd call it passing of one of his trials, because I think he's really, if you want to take it real deep, he's only passed probably 2 of the 5 trials by the time the season is over. That being skills and courage, right? I mean, you can make an argument that Flesh was maybe I don't even believe this, so I shouldn't make the argument, but I guess you could argue the torture session with Tarkin and the Inquisitor could be Flesh, but I don't think so, and I haven't been told anything to believe that's true. But so Kanan's evolution throughout the entire season, I think, on top of learning how to be a teacher, is like, how does a Padawan teach? you know what I mean? Like, right. All his training is sort of on the job training, right? Like, Kanan's discipline is top shelf. It's very difficult to fight the Empire, have a lightsaber, and have the discipline to keep it hidden and not use it because you were told by your master and also by Obi-Wan that's the last thing you should do. So that takes a tremendous amount of discipline just not to cheat, right? Because it'd be so much easier to beat him if you could just whip that out, or if you could just use your force powers. Now, I would say he probably uses the force a little when he's aiming and jumping and doing flips on his version of a Harley and making reverse shots on stormtroopers. So yeah, there's probably some force there, but that could also just look very Jason Bourne and awesome too. So
true,
but you know, so that's sort of, you know, where I see Kanan's progression. I would say by the end he's finished letting go of fear, which isn't so much a trial as it is sort of a culmination of all the trials together. But he does start to release that when he has the vision with Yoda, when Ezra's searching for his kyber crystal and facing his own test. But if you look at it, I mean, Kanan's still so young as far as a Jedi goes. Like, he has street knowledge, right? Like, he can street fight. He has that Rocky Balboa quality. But he doesn't have the technique, right? He's not Apollo Creed. You have to get to Rocky 3 and have Apollo when he's retired, and he says, okay, I'm going to train you because Clubber Lang's a murderer. He's going to kill your ass. And so, then he starts training, and he's sloppy and he's clunky, and he finally learns from Apollo the true, meaning of speed and rhythm, and they do their beatdown dance, and all of a sudden he's the man. And that's Kanan's best quality is he's undisciplined, so things you expect him to do, he wouldn't do. And I think you see him grow in his skill set, and that's all because of the Inquisitor in a weird way. Jason Isaacs is his teacher. Right. And, he sort of learns how to use the lightsaber because he has to. Which I think is awesome. And you see his force powers definitely grow before that final fight. I mean, you see him do some pretty amazing things. So in that regard, I think he's very strong. And in the discipline area, he's very strong. But he has a lot of shortcomings and a lot of weaknesses. And season 2, oh my God, it's gonna you're gonna see serious challenges, man. There's gonna be at least 2 more. At least my version of what 2 more of the 3 trials that are left are going to be literally in one season, and we have a much longer season to do it, but they're hardcore.
That's very, very cool. What I did, I pointed out Empire Day, Path of the Jedi, Idiot's Array, Vision Hope, and then the finale. Those are basically the ones that I picked to break down.
Idiot's Array. Idiot's Array, I think you really see Kanan's shortcomings, which we were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
You can see the type of personality that gets under his skin, and you can see how he sort of fails to deal with that. And then you can see how he deals with a very serious individual like Callus, or even a more serious individual like the Inquisitor, and you can sort of see Kanan's strong suits. And I think that comes from that fear of letting his master die, even though he couldn't have done anything. But in your mind, you blame yourself because that's ego, right? We have to feel like we could have done something to feel better about ourselves, even though it makes us feel worse. So Idiot's Array, I think, is probably the best example of, we could even say it's regression, because I don't think he grows much in that. He sort of gets exposed, and Lando sort of rips the Band-Aid off and shows everybody the wound, and he's like, oh God, you know what I mean? Like, nobody can deal with Lando. Like, I've said this before, I think Kanan's, to me, is the coolest Jedi in the galaxy, but Lando's the coolest being in the galaxy, so nobody ever tops Lando.
That's a great point. And two, you brought up Path of Jedi and Ezra getting his crystal, and in that episode it was a lot of fun to hear the return of Yoda and Frank Oz and how that it kind of comes into play. And you said that Kanan has a lot of fear in him. I think this was a good episode to see that fear kind of come true as he was sitting there waiting for Ezra to kind of get through his trials. Well, Kanan was going through his own trials as well. So it's talk about that a little bit more. And that episode was more of a mentor episode, and how I think we kind of broke it down a little bit and talked about how Kanan was kind of the turning point in his training.
I would say, I would say that episode is the beginning of him beginning to release that fear. He certainly, I don't think, has passed a trial by the end of that episode, but Yoda's now planted the seed and sort of said, you need to look inside yourself, and you need to recognize what's wrong, and you need to deal with that, which is what a shrink would tell you, right? If you're laying on the couch in Malibu somewhere and talking to your doctor while you take 12 Xanax or whatever those people do. But you need that sort of slap in the face, or that sort of hand that helps you up in a more gentle way. And Yoda is the best, so he knows the right approach to take. And you see, like, even Kanan's reaction when he first hears Yoda is fear. Like, it's almost like he wears shame on his sleeve. He wears all his emotions on his sleeve, but he wears shame on his sleeve so brilliantly in the animation, and you can see it in his face. I mean, that moment where the Inquisitor is giving him the Inquisition. And he's sort of, right in his face, and you can see and I felt the performance really, had shame in it when he says run, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can even feel it all the way back to, and I don't know the titles of the episodes as well as you guys, so it helps me, like what you just did when you sort of say when they're at the temple, because then I can go, oh yeah, Ezra's test and Kanan's test. But in that episode, I think even his reaction to Yoda shows fear, almost the way like a religious person fears God when they know they're doing wrong, but they can't quite make the real confession. So they go, oh yeah, I lied to this guy and I ran a stop sign, but they don't confess that one sin that they actually feel bad about. And I think that's kind of what that moment is for Kanan. If you're an atheist, you don't know what I'm talking about, but just trust me. I'm a recovering Catholic. I feel everyone out there. But, so fear, I think, is Kanan's biggest Jedi crutch, so to speak, and that's the beginning of it sort of being taken away from him, and Yoda saying you have to walk on your own 2 feet or you're never going to be able to teach this kid, which would mean you're going to get this kid killed. And I think Ezra's much too important to the Star Wars story for Kanan to screw that up.
True story. Well, and also this whole episode, I mean, you got the return of Frank Oz. So what was that like for you, both as an actor and as a fan?
It's bittersweet because we didn't get the opportunity to work with him. He's obviously pretty busy. He's Frank Oz.
Right.
So we didn't get to be in the session with him, but we did get to hear, some of us got to hear the voice. Taylor wasn't there, but he didn't get to hear Yoda anyway, but the rest of the cast was there that episode. And he did speak to Yoda too, but I know he wasn't there that day. He must have been working. He was on a job in Florida. But the rest of us all got to kind of hear what was pre-recorded and to see Vanessa and Steve sort of mark out for that, and to see Tia be like, is that the real, wait, that's Frank Oz? Like to see her sort of put it together. It's all those experiences and all those sort of old school moments are very humbling for me because I am a fan. To address the other part of your question.
Yeah.
So, the Billy D episode, I obviously have a soft spot for. The Vader moments I have huge soft spots for.
Oh yeah, we'll get to those for sure.
Yeah, I mean Ahsoka, everybody has a soft spot for. So and season 2 is, some of my favorite characters, some of them, not all of them. Maybe we'll get there in season 3, but some of my favorite characters, not just from the original movie, but from, the whole universe that Star Wars has created that we count as canon now. We have more really cool cameos coming up, and it's more than one episode. I mean, we get these characters, throughout the season, and sometimes they're sprinkled in and sometimes it's heavy, but it's such a joy for me to get to hear these voices and see the people behind them, create these characters that I am genuinely a fan of. I really get off on it, man. I love it so much.
That came through really strongly in Rebels Recon that airs on StarWars.com after the episodes when you were talking about the finale of season 1. It was cool to see your enthusiasm.
Yeah, watching the last 2, I mean, Filoni kind of set it up over at Disney Channel, and they played it on their 4K Sony, 200-inch triple high def 2022 TV, whatever it is, and literally like it had like a hologram touchpad, and the
wow.
Disney execs like moving their hand over this thing like
like Tony Stark,
Minority Report, much better movie. There you go. But and it came up, and so we have this amazing sound, and you got to remember. Dave did the ultimate Filoni hookup and had his homie who was in Prague live record with the Philharmonic all the music for that finale. So even the music was magic and special because it was recorded live and from legit people who got the Eastern European parents who beat their ass because they weren't playing the violin well enough, and all of a sudden we get to hear them play Star Wars music. So it was. For me, that whole experience was completely awesome, and to see Dave's face, and you knew he was proud of it, and it wasn't even like the finished product. It was like 90% finished, and he still had a lot of pride. And he's very critical. I mean, he's going to be harder on himself than any critic could ever be because he sets higher standards than any critic could imagine people could accomplish in this world, but he knows what you can accomplish. So if he doesn't get there, he gets frustrated because he wants it to be great. So to see that much pride in his face was very, very rewarding as an actor, and everybody saw it. It wasn't just me.
That's great to hear that you guys work so cohesively and have a great ending product. As Dan and I broke down, going back to Path of the Jedi, we broke this down and kind of talked about Yoda and kind of some of the natures of the Force and things. And one of the things that Yoda says, he can see Kanan now, and before he could not. What are your thoughts on this as far as the Star Wars saga and maybe some of the workings of the Force?
I mean, if you look at sort of the 5 trials sort of represent the 5, not channels of it, but think of the Force as a river, okay? This will sound very Bruce Lee.
I love it.
A poor man's Bruce Lee. I'm not nearly as evolved as he was. So picture a river, and it splits into 5 different channels, and everyone has their own river, right? I get the Rio Grande, you get the Mississippi, and you can have the Thames in London. And in each of these 5 sort of fingers that come off the river, some of them are bigger on my river, and some of them are bigger on your river. Some of mine are thinner, some of yours are thinner, right? So everybody's stronger in different areas of the Force. And I think, whether you're sort of dark side or light side, so everybody sort of has a stronger suit. So for him, Kanan's going to literally be blind in certain areas of the Force because his education, it's not like he's a high school dropout. His school got blown up. His teachers got murdered, and he had to run and hide. So there's going to be parts of himself that he's not even aware are faults. Like, you and I can recognize it, right? But it's not something that he would deny. It's something that he's ignorant to. It's something that maybe Hera can help him visualize a little better in season 2. It's something that an amazing character who people I know, love, and respect is going to help Kanan sort of come to terms with. And these aren't spoiler things. These are things the Inquisitor was grilling him about while he was strapped to a table getting electrocuted. Yep. So everyone knows it's about that moment of 66 and of losing his master and what he was forced to do, which was sort of turn tail and run, right? And I don't know how that is for women, but for men, like, that's the kind of thing that sticks with you forever. And that's why the word retreat is such a dirty word, right? It's like the word failure. It's such a dirty word, but we never look at it as an educational process, which it actually is. And that's what Yoda does. He sort of presents failure, which is what Kanan's doing. He's failing at this part of being a Jedi and certainly being a teacher. And he's sort of saying it in that constructive way. He's not Patton. He's not hitting you with the riding crop. He's sort of that gentle coach who's always encouraging. He's the martial arts instructor, right? Who, no matter how you throw the punch, they tell you perfect so that you feel good about it, so that you want to come back the next week, and they know that over time you'll improve. And that's what Yoda is. Whereas like the football coach is like, no, you're terrible, you suck. That's a Sith Lord, right? Like, that's why Ray Lewis has a TV show to scare the crap out of those guys, because they're Siths, they're evil. And I just use Ray Lewis as an example of good, and he's sort of had a checkered past as well. But whatever.
Bobby Knight works.
We'll forgive and forget. Yeah. But yeah, so I think that's sort of what Yoda means, and that's who he represents. I think it's not life coach, it's martial arts instructor, and not, hey, here's how you use a lightsaber. It's, hey, here's how you live your life, and here's what you're not seeing. And they always speak in fortune cookies, right? Like Bruce Lee, be like water. He would say, if you put water in the teacup, it becomes the teacup, or the teapot. I think he would say, the teapot. He'd say, if you put it in a cup, it becomes the cup. And he'd say, now water can flow or it can crash. Be water. But what he's saying, he's talking about muscle memory. He's talking about doing something so many times that your brain no longer thinks about it. Your body just does it, and it throws that perfect punch every single time. And that's kind of how I've always sort of looked at Jedi and Sith as samurai and ninja, right? And so Yoda is the ultimate Ronin, right? Like, he serves the master all the way through betrayal, but once he's betrayed, he doesn't mess around. and a lot of people die around him, but Yoda ain't dying. he's that dude that can take out 20 other, samurai who have turned code, or 20 other ninja who came to assassinate only him. And he's that guy from the old 70s movies that wins. So
he's Clint Eastwood. Shorter.
Yeah, man, exactly. And Dave gets to be Sergio Leone. But in Clone Wars, he almost was. They did some great Sergio Leone shots in there. But yeah, man. So that's sort of what I think he means through that. I look at him more in as like a Bruce Lee sort of
so metaphorical
from Kung Fu. Yeah, he's the ultimate metaphor.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Well, another reminder, Corey, why it's so much fun to talk to Freddie, because I like the way you explain things. It's really awesome.
I think it's probably just because we're closer to the same age, so you just get my references. Whereas like all like the people who listen are like 21 and under, they're like, Bruce Lee, I heard of him. Was he in the UFC? Was he in the UFC?
Is he a downloadable character?
Yeah, exactly. I think he is in a
He is, yeah. My son had him. He's pretty cool. So I was trying to explain to him how he jumped over a truck and stuff like that, and they're like, what?
Bruce Lee's armbar was weak, though. He didn't have any control with the north knee. You would have escaped real easy.
I don't know about me. You probably would have, not me.
Anybody would. That was a movie armbar. That wasn't a real one.
So you talked earlier about the return of Lando and Idiots Array, and then, of course, Stephen Stanton comes back as Grand Moff Tarkin.
Oh,
we've got these amazing examples. Oh, yeah, we've got the cast and crew of Rebels connecting the Star Wars saga even more closely. But here's the trick, and I know you'll get this. I don't think I could ask a lot of people this, but I think you'll understand this. How do you continue to make events like this good storytelling and avoid the pratfalls of making it purely a publicity stunt?
Well, it has nothing to do with me, fortunately. The people who, and I'm sure there were plenty of other people involved, but the people who created this, Dave and Carrie, respect the Star Wars universe. To like, fans get arrogant, and I've probably even been guilty of it when I was younger, where we think we care more than the people who made the product, right? And maybe at a certain point we do. Maybe they're just cashing in and getting checks. That's not Dave. There's not a lot of dough in animation, all right? I mean, he does this because he takes pride in his work, and he knows the better product he puts out there, the more people will want to see him continue to do that. Carrie wanted to make Disney's first Star Wars show, and that alone is more pressure than any amount they could charge for subscriptions. Like, that's, if you screw that up, then what's next for you at Disney? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it takes a lot of guts for her to want to put her name on this show. It takes a lot of guts for her to even pitch this show. So people need to give those two a ton of respect. We have a lot of people who are responsible for making our stories character driven and not gimmick driven. But those two people are the captains of the ship that make sure that every story is treated with respect, and that every story is about celebrating the Star Wars universe, not selling the Star Wars universe.
I like that.
Whatever toy company is making our toys, that's their job. They sell Star Wars, right? The publicity department at Disney, not Disney Channel, but Disney, they sell Star Wars. You go to Disneyland, they're selling you Star Wars in the toy stores. But these two individuals are making Star Wars on a weekly basis, and they take a lot of pride and they take a lot of joy. And a lot of people in this country are underpaid, but for the product that they put out and with the amount of people who love that product, I promise you, they're underpaid. Like, it's animation, man. It's not like, the Schwarzenegger getting 20 million a picture. The top animation people aren't getting anywhere near that. So, it's definitely, it's a labor of love and a labor of respect, and they approach it both that way. And I don't mind speaking for them because I've seen their work ethic, and I know they do that.
Exactly, which I knew you'd totally nail that too.
I've been doing this 20 years, man. I know the people who phone it in, and I know the people who don't. And I don't hate the people that phone it in. It's show business, all right? It's not show art. And that's a hard thing to wrap your head around as an artist. You have to sort of be bipolar. And the right side of your brain is going to think the left side of your brain is a jerk. And the left side of your brain is going to think the right side of your brain needs to wake up and stop being so naive. And that's the only way to succeed out here, man. And most artists, unfortunately, are mainly right-brained and not very disciplined, and this business eats them up. And even if they have success, this business eats them up. So when you have people who are creative and not just told they were creative, as a lot of executives have been told they're creative, they're not. You guys and fans of Star Wars are lucky that these two individuals not only know the brand and love the brand, but know how to get stories out that people are going to respect and love, and it's going to push the Star Wars brand forward, not sell it.
Well, it's like in Ghostbusters when Bill Murray says, we got the tools, we got the talent.
Yo, I love Ghostbusters. My buddy Tim Dowling wrote Pixels, the new Adam Sandler movie that's coming out where video games sort of take over the earth.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, it literally is like a Ghostbusters for 2015.
Oh, that's cool.
Because that's what they're doing. I want them to find like Ray Parker Jr. and take him out of retirement and have the Pixels song for their theme music.
I saw that image of Donkey Kong for that.
Oh, you should watch the trailer, man. Like, they have them all digitized. It looks really sick.
Awesome. So, Freddie, in the episode Vision of a Hope, the crew of the Ghosts finally meet Senator Gal Travis, and they learn that the Empire's reach is even more dangerous than they had dared to dream. This episode continues the growth of Ezra and Kanan into learning independently as well as together. How has their relationship changed throughout this season?
Well, I think trust is probably the biggest, not lesson they learn, but the biggest sort of, I think it's a colossal step of growth as far as their relationship goes. Ezra learns that he can't trust everything he sees. At the same time, Kanan is sort of trusting this vision that this kid is having because he knows it's the Force. He just has to help this kid interpret it the right way, which again goes to fear because he doesn't know if he can pull that off. So for me, as far as their relationship goes, it's mainly, that's the main thing is trust. But the Gal Travis storyline is interesting on more levels than that. It also throws back to the relationship between Hera and Sibo at the end of, and you'll have to give me the title of the episode, where she's delivering Sibo to Fulcrum before you guys know that it's Ahsoka. And she sort of has a conversation with him there, or the beginning of one, and then they fade to black, where I personally feel Hera knows and has known this entire time about Ezra's family. And so I don't think Gal Travis is the first one with this knowledge. And I think Hera is in a very difficult spot because if Sibo did say anything, she's not sharing that at this moment. And if he didn't, then it's a conversation we don't have to have, and we don't know yet because that hasn't come up. But to see sort of how they animate her in a lot of those moments, I think it's worthy of a second look of the episode to really kind of see a lot of her expressions as this starts to break down. On the other side of it, Brent is friggin' amazing and played such a slime ball in his, oh my gosh, man, such a slime ball. You know when you just want someone to get punched in the face? Like, yes. I didn't want Hera to shoot him. I wanted her to punch him, and that satisfaction was so nice. And I know some people were like, oh, she punched him in the stones. No, she punched him dead in the gut, and he went down because he's soft. He's crazy soft, and Callus even looks at him like he's soft. But yeah, that episode I think really sort of pushes Ezra a lot further along, and I think he's learning a lot in the way that Kanan was learning as far as on the job training, only on steroids, because he's actually has a somewhat of a Jedi actually giving him advice and helping him correct these mistakes and showing him things at maybe too young of an age or at an advanced pace because they don't have much time. So those episodes, they're very, high action and high drama. But if you re-examine the episode, it's not because of some gimmick. It's always character driven, and the story's always coming from an honest place. And it's this kid who wants to believe in a dream his parents gave him. And this guy is the closest thing to fulfilling that dream. And he's an all in or all out kind of kid. Like Ezra doesn't go halfway on anything, right? He's like, I quit. I want to be a Jedi. I hate this. I want to be a. He's Gwyneth Paltrow, and where she's like, I love John. I hate John. I love John. I hate John. Like literally, he's a diva in the because he's in the middle of puberty, right? That's hormones. That's drugs, basically.
Yeah.
So his reactions are very up and down, and I think this episode sort of tames him to not tames him because he's more powerful, I think, at the end of it, but balances him a little bit more.
Yeah, it makes him more focused, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it kind of humanizes him a bit more and makes him a bit more three-dimensional, more relatable.
True. Good point. And the whole point of all this, like you said, these shows are all character-driven, and very much so, and in such a way that you get to know them. And I think that's why the finale was so powerful. And we need to talk about the finale. I mean, how can we have you on and not talk about it? Still so fresh in our minds. But so Kanan faces probably his greatest challenge yet through his capture, torture, and final confrontation with the Inquisitor. So let's talk about the series finale from concept to recording to finally getting to see the completed episodes.
Yeah, man. For me, that scene with the Inquisitor is epic because it is the completion of a trial. It's an on-the-job training trial. It's the council's not overseeing it, or maybe they are because Yoda's out there. But it's such a huge moment in the growth of Kanan. I almost said Kanan. That Dave and I always joke when he wants to get like fancy director. He'll be like, when you deliver Kanan's next line, Freddie.
Sounds like Shakespeare.
Yeah, that's what we try to do. If I'm too actory, that's probably why he does it. But sorry, I lost track. I almost screwed myself up there. But that moment for Kanan, I mean, he says it. I don't have to overanalyze it. He says the word fear. When he loses or thinks he loses Ezra, instead of going to anger, he still lets him know, like, you're done, you're dead. But he has this moment of tranquility, this moment of humility that sort of gives him that confidence where when you look at a guy and you just know, and he knows, it's on. Like, you may win, but you're not going to want to fight me again when it's over. And they have this amazing lightsaber fight that when I watched, it just, it blew me away. I wish they didn't cut to commercial in the middle of it. That made me mad. But I really just sort of fell in love with who Kanan was, and I fell in love with a lot of his shortcomings because I know what a lot of the stuff he gets to go through in season 2. And if you want to, without me giving spoilers, but give you a chance to analyze it, think of Kanan like a boxer or even in today's generation with MMA. We build up a guy so that he has a great fight with the champ, but the champ is still the champ, right?
Yeah.
So we're building up Kanan, and we're establishing Kanan's sort of power level in the Star Wars universe. So people go, okay, he's at least as strong as an Inquisitor at the end of season 1. So people are like, yeah, go Kanan. So that when he meets someone like, I don't know, let's say Darth friggin' Vader.
That guy.
Yeah, well, then people know he's on our tail. Some people, like the younger fans, are going to believe, they're going to believe in Kanan. They're going to say, he's got a shot. Again, I'll go back to the fact that Dave and Carrie care about the Star Wars universe and do not believe in God mode like Star Wars Force Unleashed 2. They're never going to hire me to voice a game ever. It's okay, I don't play your crappy games. You have two people who aren't going to let Vader get broken down. We're not establishing him, but reinforcing the foundation that was laid down, 30, 40 plus. Oh my God, I'm not even going to say how many years ago it was because that means I'm old. But it's reinforcing that foundation and making Vader scary again and making kids go, oh my God. I think that my daughter's 5.5. She'll be 6 when she sees how scary Vader is, and she got scared twice during season 1, and the first time that we see Vader again, she'll get scared. She'll get scared for sure. So I'm sure there'll be parents going, "Oh, I can't believe you didn't warn us. It's Vader. You got to warn your kids. It's Darth Vader."
That's right.
Just because you saw him walking down the parade with Aladdin doesn't make him a nice guy.
Well,
that guy was too short to be the real Vader.
Well, that's completely true. I think on StarWars.com they interviewed Dave, of course, and he had mentioned, look, for many people, they don't really know who Darth Vader is. We need to kind of establish what kind of character this is. He's all mean. He's all menace. There's no redemption from Luke Skywalker for a while in his future. So this is the big bad Vader.
Right. That's absolutely right, man. He should have zero redeeming qualities unless you want his one redeeming quality to be Ahsoka. Like, she's the representation of the best of Anakin, right? So you can have that, but that's not Vader. That's Ahsoka. So Dave's not going to let Vader's not going to be vulnerable, and he shouldn't be. And I think that's awesome, because most studios, I don't want to say they would screw it up, but they want the God mode thing too, man. Like, every superhero is indestructible, and now every human is basically indestructible. And it's like, if everyone is Han Solo, then Han Solo's not cool anymore.
Right.
If everyone is Cartman, then Cartman's not funny anymore. And you have a whole generation of people making decisions in Hollywood that shape the fabric of how screenwriters write their scripts, because they got to sell them, right? And it cheapens the characters, it dampens the story, and everything is John McClane, man, and that's whack. Characters have to struggle. You can't beat up everyone you fight. You have to lose and have an obstacle to overcome. I loved watching 24, but man, like, look, the Mountain Lion thing was goofy. Everyone agrees on that.
Yes.
And I watched every season and enjoyed every season. But the only time he got jacked up was his own doing, pretty much. Like, you can't always win. You have to take some beatings. So maybe that's why they did the drug angle, and dealing with the loss of the family all the time on 24, so that there could be some balance there. But Star Wars has always done it in a way where your lead character has to earn it. Your supporting characters have to earn what their goals are. And because they're not going to do it all in one movie, they're going to make you wait 3 films to be satisfied. So Luke Skywalker gets to grow from this sort of whiny kid, I want power converters, to an actual master who talks to Jabba like he's a punk, man. Like, who has the guts to do that? Like, Kanan would talk trash, but it would be like, yeah, whatever, Jabba. Holy crap, we're going to die. And Luke is not having that. You know what I mean? Luke's like, nah, you're going to do exactly what I say, or I'm going to kill everybody here. And so you get to witness that growth. And I think that's a special thing. Luke always eats crap when it's with Han, because Han's cooler. And if you look at a lot of the movies today, the lead character, the Luke Skywalker of the movie, would never eat crap from the other guy. He would be giving crap to Han Solo, which would neutralize. Well, I was going to say neuter, but it would neuter Han Solo.
Yeah.
And that's not cool, man. That sucks, and that's why I don't see a lot of movies. And my buddy who wrote Pixels sees every movie and he tries to drag me, and I'm like, man, I'm not doing that. There's not going to be any dialogue in the third act. He's like, there's at least 6 lines in the third act.
You just said in one sentence what has bugged me about most movies. There's no dialogue in the third act. It's all like some giant, Peter Jackson situation.
Yeah, there's a lot of big Well, I won't. If yelling counts as dialogue, then there's a lot. Then I've misspoken. Then there's a lot of dialogue in third acts. But I don't count as dialogue. So, for me, movies lack a lot. I think cable television has sort of taken over the third act portion of people's love with Hollywood, with series like Breaking Bad and things like that, where it's, you wait for the third act of that, or you waited, unless you're on Netflix now. You wait for the final act of Breaking Bad, because that's where you know you're going to get the most content, the most story, and not just an explosive montage. Although they did a couple of those too.
Speaking of third acts, we get to see a big, huge final duel, which you talked about earlier with the Inquisitor and Kanan, and man, that was one for the ages. It was right up there with everything we've seen so far as lightsaber duels. Totally awesome, really well done, and there's that scene where the Inquisitor knocks Ezra down, and supposedly Kanan believes he's died, and so a question here we kind of thought of is, does Kanan touch the dark side once he thinks Ezra's died, or is this purely an unadulterated focus as well as a pure connection to the Force for Kanan?
Zero dark side. This is the easiest question you'll ever ask me, because Dave and I spent a lot of time on this.
Wow.
Zero dark side. It's a moment where, Jedi have crossroads, right? In every movie, almost in every Clone Wars episode, not just arc, but episode. There's always a crossroad. There's always, Ahsoka was always learning a lesson on her way. And it's a crossroad where he could go dark, but not in the animation and not in my performance was that, the intent in any way. I think there may be a moment where you see some intensity in Kanan's eyes when he looks up, but don't confuse that with anger. That's pure focus. That's that Bruce Lee balance that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
I sort of pulled on this old 90s movie called Deep Cover with Jeff Goldblum and Lawrence Fishburne. And Lawrence Fishburne's an undercover cop, and Jeff Goldblum is the guy he's trying to bring down, and he kills someone that Lawrence Fishburne is just not okay with him killing. And Lawrence has this moment where he's just sort of like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't have done that, David. That's Jeff Goldblum's character's name. You shouldn't have done that, Jeff Goldblum. And Jeff Goldblum looks at him, and Lawrence kind of looks up at him, and you just know, dude, you're dead. And it's not about anger. This is the equal and opposite reaction to the action you're responsible for. And I took a lot of inspiration from that moment and really tried to make that my own in the vocal performance. And oddly enough, I thought the look Kanan gave him was very similar to the one that Lawrence gave David or Jeff Goldblum in Deep Cover.
I will say as a follow-up, that line you say, because now I have nothing to fear, it gave me goosebumps. That was right up there with, I'm your father, and I think that was an incredible way, because you talked about even this conversation here now about fear, and this was it, man. He had nothing left to fear.
Right. Well, this is the completion of the trial, right?
Mm-hmm,
So this, as far as the courage goes, I mean, I think he passed the skills test when they take the radio tower. And he's also highly selfless in that, which I think is another strong quality.
Sacrificial, yeah.
Yeah, and not in a martyr-like way, just this is the best way to do it, and this is how it's going down. And he's very okay and comfortable with that. I mean, he's not okay with getting electrocuted, but he knows the choice that he's made, and he doesn't hesitate for a second. I was very, very proud of that character for making that choice.
It's love too, love for family, his family.
Yeah, man, but you really did nail it. I mean, it's that line. It's not even him, whooping on the Inquisitor, which is equally awesome, but for different reasons. It's that line that is the completion of that part of his training, not the lightsaber fight. It's that release of fear of, oh my God, I know I'm not going to lose, and I know why, and it's because you were right. I was a coward, I was afraid, but now all that's gone. There's nothing left to, and we really hit that word hard. So people really felt that was the most important word of the episode. And you can even see his mouth, I think, moves the way mine does, where I talk out the side of my face. But he really hits that fear. You know what I mean? Because this whole season has been about, there's the Inquisitor, get the hell out of here. And running is the one thing that he feels more shame about than anything else. And he tells you that in that moment where he's getting grilled, and he says, "Run." And think about what he and Ezra and what he's been telling Ezra to do this whole season. Every time they see the Inquisitor, every time, lives are on the line, it's run, because that's all he knows. And it's the first real moment where there's no more fear. I failed. I let him die. So now here's your equal and opposite reaction, and it's game over for him from that moment on. Sorry, Jason Isaacs, you were awesome.
Indeed. Well, you both were, and I feel pretty excited to hear you say that, because when I saw that scene, I thought that people are going to think about the dark side, but no. Here's what's going on. This is a Qui-Gon moment at the end of Phantom Menace. He's taking a deep breath. He's exhaling.
Very much so.
And he's, he's focused. It's no different than, like, let's say you're a basketball player. If you're constantly worried about failure, you're not going to make too many of your free throws. But as soon as you let go and embrace who you are, you can focus and just be. And that's why when Ezra's down below, he looks up and he says, no, he's actually more than okay, because Kanan was being the Kanan he always wanted to be.
Yeah,
that's right. That's a good point. Ezra does sort of give you the Jedi commentary right there. That's a good point.
So now you've been tantalizing us with little ideas of season 2, and as you know, we're like so anti-spoiler. We're more anti-spoiler than you are anti-God mode, believe it or not. So what can you discuss as far as season 2 is concerned? We do know we're going to get to see it in Celebration in a month, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah. Well, I'll get some of the fun stuff. I mean, we're going to get off of Lothal. I think we've caused enough trouble there, and there are enough Imperial eyes on. There's enough Imperial eyeballs on that planet that we are going to have to find another place to sort of operate out of. So people will get to see what that is, and they'll get to see, without spoilers, the characters that help us find this new place for us to sort of camp out at, so to speak. And I think there'll be a lot of old school fun in that moment when they sort of discover some of these new characters that are coming in. There's also some characters that have never been seen in the Star Wars world, but perhaps have been, inspired by some of, the non-canon now, but are still incredible characters and wonderful stories. And they're just looking for a new and dynamic way to introduce someone special into the Star Wars universe. And so there's going to be a few of those characters in as well. And we have some highly, highly, highly capable actors that people, not just like, oh, this guy's a big time, character actor, but you won't know his name. You'll know their names. They got real legit people, just like they did in Clone Wars, man. But we get luckier now, right? Because whereas Clone Wars didn't pay, this one pays a little bit more. So actors are more willing to come and do it. But we have some really high level actors coming in, with some throwbacks to some old stories and things, as far as, planets and asteroid belts and things like that. There's always going to be little Easter eggs in there, much more season 2 than in season 1. Sweet. But as far as the characters, we have an opportunity to get much deeper into everyone's backstory in season 2. Season 1 is about establishing them as legit characters in the Star Wars universe so that people will want to follow them for seasons 2, 3, 4, however long we get to go. So season 2 is very much what happened in that moment with Kanan and Depa, how he felt in that moment, and he tells you everything, and who motivates this sort of confession, and who he confesses this to. I think people will find very, very compelling. Sabine's backstory, who I think season 1 is probably the least explored, is such a reward for anyone who's had love for her, and for anyone who's like, yeah, but they don't have much for her in season 2. When they see who and what this girl is, it's gonna, you have to be educated on Star Wars to get it, but if you aren't, you'll get educated quick with social media these days, and people are gonna flip out. They're gonna flip out.
Wow.
With Zeb, you get to learn about his backstory, and it has so much heart and so much soul. And he's already like the teddy bear, right? He's our Wookiee. Literally, he's our original Ralph McHugh Wookiee. Yeah. He just shaves. and looks like an eggplant. Doesn't he look like the little guy? Remember that video game Kid Icarus?
Yes.
And
Yes.
the little eggplant guys would chase you. Don't he kind of look like a buff version of one of those guys?
Now I can't unsee it.
Zeb's my favorite character in the show.
Oh, really?
But
Awesome.
you really get to learn about who he was and why that moment with him and Callus in what was that, Droids in Distress?
Yeah, you got it.
Wow, that'd be the only time I get that right. Because I think I just watched it again with my daughter. But when you see that sort of anger and rage that he had with Callus, and we're so lucky to have David voice that role. The actors we get are just sick, and David is around season 2. Callus is around season 2 because David is so friggin' awesome and just an amazing actor. And we're super lucky that he wants to be a part of this tiny show and takes time out of it because he's doing work right now and making choices that a lot of actors don't have the guts to make. And I respect him so much, and he has a tremendous presence throughout season 2 so far, and people are gonna love him. But getting back to Zeb, you get to find out sort of why that moment with Callus was so raw, and why he would be willing to lose his temper and forget his discipline, because Callus ain't beating him in a fight straight up, especially with bow rifles. Callus has to use tactics like Muhammad Ali would use, right? Like, you hit like my mama, you ain't got nothing. I punk slapped your sister, all this kind of stuff. And that's what Callus does to him, right? And it makes Zeb angry, and Zeb makes a mistake, and that's how Callus gets him. But straight up, no way. There's no way. And when you find out, just how much weight is on Zeb's shoulders, it's a really rewarding moment. I'm not saying anything about Hera because her stuff is too sick to even give generalities about. But we really get into, you got to remember, we're doing way more episodes. I think we're doing 20 plus episodes this season 2. So people are really going to get to invest a lot of time in their favorite characters and get to know a lot more. And the throwbacks that we bring in have a tremendous presence on the show. It's not just, hey, here's a Lando cameo. You know what I mean? Like, you have Lando on the show because, like I said, he's the coolest dude in the universe. We're not selling Lando Calrissian dolls. You know what I mean? Like, those were never flying off the shelves to begin with. I think people were a little more excited for the Luke and Darth ones, and Jetpack Boba. But, you have Lando to sort of establish the world we live in, and not every episode, and I know Clone Wars fans will hate this, but not every episode can be lightsaber fight to the death. We have to have some to introduce, children to the product. So, if you're over 16, you get mad, but if you're under 16, it's introducing you, or 16. What did I grow up in the 80s and 90s? If you're 10 or older, you think it's lame, but if you're 10 or younger, you go, wow, this is really cool. Star Wars rocks. So we have to have some episodes like that, and those episodes will have a puffer pig or two. But we have in season 2 a lot more opportunities to get very, very, legit in the world of Star Wars. And we've discussed this before. Disney kills people all the time. The Frozen girls don't have no parents. Bambi's mom got shot.
That's right.
Fox and the Hound's a horrible, horrible mind screw that they may as well kill everybody in that movie.
That movie bothered me so much.
Oh my gosh! Like, I watched it once, and we'll never. My daughters wanted to watch it. I'm like, no, we're not watching that. I think Robin Hood's the only movie they made where no one died. I swear to God.
That's true.
So we do a lot of. We get deep. We get pretty heavy and serious at times, but we balance those episodes out with those fun Star Wars moments that you have to have. Who you call, who's scruffy, who you calling scruffy looking, and don't get cocky, kid. Those are happening in, moments of distress, at least the don't get cocky one. But Star Wars tries to give you some levity and make you laugh, so it's not, a
it's
third act
great
with no dialogue.
storytelling.
They're good at it. They're very good at it.
Well, you were a big reason for that, man. I mean, you just hit home runs constantly in season 1. We're lucky to have you in the Star Wars universe.
I appreciate you saying that, man. I take it real seriously, and all of us feel very fortunate to be involved, and I think the whole cast complements the animation and complements the scripts very well, and I think we're an equally important part of the process. I just we're a much more tomato paste in the tomato sauce, right? Like we're a high concentration of flavor, but we don't get as long to cook as the rest of the sauce. Like each episode they get, weeks, months. David will say, we get days, Freddie, days. But they get a little more time than we do in developing the stories. So when we go in for these sessions, the first 30, 40 minutes is Dave sort of breaking down the process of this script, where it started, where it is now since we've read it. If there's animation to show us, he'll show us. Sometimes he'll straight up draw something on the fly and be like, here's the ship that's you're going to be dealing with, and here's the the world that you're going to be on. Here's what some of the guys look like. Here's what this thing looks like over here, and he'll just freehand these like right in front of us. It's amazing, and it's like. I can't remember that old show. It was like there was a show on HBO when I was a kid called Brain Games, and this guy would draw these pictures, and they would fast forward it, and it would show the picture like super fast. Dave's doing that without the fast forward. He's like the Micro Machine guy, but with art. And so he'll bust all this out, but that's 35, 40 minutes just so we can catch up and be on the same page as the rest of their team.
That's great. I applaud you guys for just being a team and working together and having that camaraderie in the studio there.
I'm telling you, man, when we go in, it's like they're 6-hour sessions, and it's literally like getting in an RV and going on a road trip with your friends and family and playing the same game that you've grown up loving. And it's like a family tradition. And literally that's what it is. We all go, we jump in the RV, which is the sound studio, and we all play Monopoly, which is the same, only our Monopoly is getting to do these scripts, but it's like this traditional thing now, and it's a family environment. And I think that's a big part as to why the relationships feel so real and organic, because they are, it's not me in a booth and then 3 months later Vanessa's recording. She's right next to me.
So Freddie, what is the best part of being Kanan?
Well, he's the coolest Jedi in the galaxy, man. He's LL Cool K. He's not the best Jedi. Like he'll lose to a lot of the fans' favorites, but no one's cooler than him. Like Anakin's not cooler. He's brooding, man. He's like he's James Dean, who was cool, but he didn't talk trash if he punched you. He'd just feel bad about it and be like, that was for my father. And that's lame. Like that's, the girls want to date him in high school, but when they grow up, they want a man. They want somebody who's confident, who's extroverted. And that's Kanan, man. Like Mace Windu, smooth, but not cool. He's too serious, right?
Yeah.
If he's in a fight, it's all seriousness. There's no smirks. If he kills somebody or downs somebody, it's serious business. Kanan gets guys and talks trash to you. Like, that's not the Jedi way. That's not cool. And I love that he does that and that he's irreverent. I think he's the first irreverent Jedi in the history of the franchise. So to me, that's the coolest part about playing him, is he's the coolest Jedi ever. Not the best. I don't want people to freak out. Ahsoka would own him, but he would teach Ahsoka how to win with some style. Like when she'd finish, she'd say something dope instead of "that was for so and so" or whoever wronged her. You know what I mean? Like instead, she'd be like, "That's all you got, sucker," and she'd walk off. It'd be great.
It's like if Peter Parker was a Jedi.
Yeah, man. There you go. You gotta have a superhero that talks some trash.
That's hilarious.
Silver Surfer was awesome, right? Like Norrin Rad was one of my favorite characters, but he didn't talk trash, dude.
No.
He was like so serious. He's like,
stoic.
"Oh yeah, I got my girlfriend killed because I bailed on my planet." And it's like, what about all those other people you got killed? You just thinking about the hot chick, bro. You're shallow. Peter Parker had deep issues, man. He was dealing with family issues. It wasn't just Mary Jane all the time.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely, totally.
Surfers, though, it's surfers, bro. They act like they're zenned out, but it's a selfish lifestyle.
Inwardly focused instead of outwardly focused.
Exactly.
So we got Celebration Anaheim coming up. Is this your first Star Wars celebration? And what do you
first Star Wars anything?
Oh wow!
Say
so
again?
What do you? I was gonna say, what are you most looking forward to at Celebration besides meeting us, of course?
Besides meeting you and spending all my time there and not fulfilling any of my requirements. I haven't seen the first episode of season 2, and I don't know if our first if they're going to do it like I really hope they do this. Season 1, our first 2 episodes, they aired as a 1-hour movie instead of 2 half hours. And I really hope that they give you guys a full hour this year, because that would be awesome, because our second episode is so sick. And the first one's great, don't get me wrong, but the second one, people are going to be like, hold on, what? So I really hope they pull them both together. So that'd probably be the thing I'm most looking forward to, is seeing the darn episode. I hope I get to see it before you guys so I can rub it in, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I asked Dave, and he literally gave me we'll see.
It would be kind of cool though to see it for the first time with a room full of rabid fans.
Yeah, but they're going to be screaming so loud, I'm not going to hear some of the cool stuff. You know what I mean?
True story.
So, in that Disney little theater they had there where they screened, those speakers are louder than I am. So I can yell and scream all I want and still hear everything that's going on.
That's awesome. So, Freddie, how can people get in touch with you if they want to ask you a question or just say hello?
Twitter's the best way. Real FP Jr. On Twitter. I'm so bad at Twitter. You guys know how to get in touch with me. Yeah. If you have questions, get in touch with my homies over here, have a cup of coffee, and they'll ask me.
There you go. We're happy to do it. Well, Freddie, thanks again so much for being on Rebels Reactions and Coffee with Kenobi. We look forward to chatting with you in the future and shaking your hand in celebration.
Yeah, man. I'll see you guys out there. It's right around the corner.
Well, kid, you pulled it off.
Was there ever any doubt?
Yes.
Chopper, get us out of here!
If you would like to respond to our question of the show, have a comment, or just want to say hello, send us an email or MP3 at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or if you have a specific question or comment for either of us individually, email us at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com or coryc@coffeewithkenobi.com, or visit us at coffeewithkenobi.com and click on the Contact Us section, or comment on one of the stories featured on the site. If you enjoy the show, please write a review in iTunes or Stitcher. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, as well as keep up to date at our Twitter feed at Coffee with Kenobi. You can also find us on Tumblr at coffeewithkenobi.tumblr.com. If you enjoy the jazz music, the album is Eye to Eye by Steve Torok.
This is Spectre 1. I need a lift.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Hold on.